My parents ignored my wedding, so I canceled their anniversary party. I thought nothing could ruin the happiest day of my life until I saw those empty chairs. The wedding was supposed to be perfect. After 18 months of planning, budgeting, and coordinating with vendors, everything seemed to fall into place. My fiancé and I had chosen a beautiful venue overlooking the lake, booked a fantastic caterer, and sent out invitations 3 months in advance. Everyone confirmed their attendance, including my parents who had initially seemed excited about the celebration. The morning of the wedding, I woke up with that familiar mix of nerves and excitement. My best man arrived early to help me get ready, and we spent the morning joking around and taking photos. I kept checking my phone, expecting a good luck message from my parents or maybe a call asking if I needed anything. Nothing came through, but I figured they were probably just busy getting ready themselves. As guests started arriving at the venue, I positioned myself near the entrance to greet everyone. My college friends showed up first, followed by my fiancé's family who had traveled from across the country. Coworkers, neighbors, and extended family members all made their way in, each offering congratulations and warm hugs. The venue slowly filled with familiar faces, laughter, and the gentle hum of conversation. But as the ceremony time approached, I realized my parents still hadn't arrived. I sent a quick text asking if they were running late, but received no response. The wedding coordinator asked if we should delay the start, but I decided to proceed as scheduled, thinking they might slip in during the processional. Standing at the altar, I watched as my beautiful bride walked down the aisle. She looked radiant in her dress, and for a moment all my worries melted away. We exchanged vows, rings, and shared our first kiss as husband and wife while our guests cheered. It should have been the pinnacle of happiness, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was fundamentally wrong. During the reception, I kept glancing at the two empty seats at the head table. Guests kept asking where my parents were, and I found myself making excuses. Maybe they got stuck in traffic, perhaps they had a last-minute emergency. Deep down, I knew something else was happening, but I couldn't process it fully while trying to enjoy my wedding celebration. The party continued late into the night, and we had an amazing time dancing and celebrating with everyone who showed up. But as I lay in bed that night, still in my tuxedo because I was too emotionally drained to change, the reality hit me like a truck. My own parents had deliberately missed my wedding without any explanation. I spent the next few days calling and texting them repeatedly, but they wouldn't answer. Finally, my dad sent a brief message saying they had decided not to come because they disagreed with some aspects of the wedding. No apology, no detailed explanation, just a cold dismissal of one of the most important days of my life. My wife was devastated too, not just for herself, but seeing how much their absence had hurt me. She had grown close to my parents during our relationship and couldn't understand how they could be so cruel. We spent our honeymoon processing the emotional fallout instead of just enjoying our new marriage. When I finally reached my mom 2 weeks later, she acted like nothing had happened. She asked casual questions about the weather and my job, completely ignoring the elephant in the room. When I brought up the wedding, she simply said they had made their choice and didn't want to discuss it further. The months that followed were difficult as I tried to rebuild some kind of relationship with them. They would call occasionally, making small talk and pretending everything was normal. But I couldn't forget how they had abandoned me on the most important day of my life. Every conversation felt strained and artificial. Then something interesting happened that made me realize just how deep their selfishness ran. My brother mentioned that our parents were planning a huge celebration for their upcoming 30th wedding anniversary. They had booked an expensive restaurant, hired a photographer, and sent out elaborate invitations to everyone in the family and their social circle. My brother showed me the invitation on his phone, and I was struck by how much effort they had put into making it perfect. Gold lettering, professional design, detailed information about the venue and schedule. The same parents who couldn't be bothered to show up for my wedding were sparing no expense for their own celebration. What made it worse was discovering they had specifically requested that I help organize parts of the event. My mom called asking if I could handle the music playlist since I had always been good with technology. She spoke as if we were best friends, completely ignoring the massive rift between us. I initially considered just going along with it to keep the peace. Maybe helping with their anniversary would somehow repair our relationship. But as I thought about it more, I realized that participating would essentially be telling them that their behavior was acceptable. My wife and I discussed it extensively over several evenings. She supported whatever decision I made, but helped me think through the implications. We talked about family dynamics, setting boundaries, and whether there was any path toward genuine reconciliation. During one of these conversations, my wife made a point that really stuck with me. She said that by helping with their anniversary after they had ignored our wedding, I would be teaching them that they could treat me poorly without consequences. It wasn't about revenge, but about self-respect and establishing healthy boundaries. The more I thought about it, the more I realized that my parents had never really apologized or acknowledged how much they had hurt me. They seemed to expect that I would just forget about it and move on without any accountability on their part. I decided to send them a carefully worded message, explaining that I wouldn't be attending their anniversary celebration. I kept it respectful but clear, stating that I couldn't celebrate their marriage when they had chosen to ignore mine. I also mentioned that, until they were willing to have an honest conversation about what had happened, I needed some space from them. The response was immediate and explosive. My phone started ringing within minutes of sending the message. My mom was crying and screaming about how ungrateful I was, while my dad left several voicemails calling me selfish and immature. They seemed shocked that there were consequences for their actions. What surprised me most was how other family members reacted. My brother initially tried to play peacemaker, asking me to reconsider for the sake of family harmony. But when I explained the full situation to him, including details about their wedding behavior that I hadn't shared before, he became much more supportive of my decision. My aunt, who had been at my wedding, reached out to say she completely understood my position. She mentioned that she had been wondering why my parents weren't there and found their absence strange and hurtful. Several other relatives expressed similar sentiments once they learned the full story. The anniversary party went ahead without me, but apparently it wasn't the joyful celebration my parents had envisioned. According to my brother, several family members asked awkward questions about my absence, and the atmosphere was tense throughout the evening. My uncle, who had always been close to my dad, apparently confronted him directly about the wedding situation. He told my dad that missing his son's wedding was inexcusable and that he needed to take responsibility for his actions. This led to a heated argument that several guests witnessed. My grandmother, who was 92 and rarely spoke up about family conflicts, apparently made a comment that really hit home. She told my parents that in all her years, she had never seen parents miss their child's wedding without a very serious reason, and that she was disappointed in their behavior. The fallout from the anniversary party created ripples throughout our extended family. Some relatives took sides while others tried to stay neutral. Family gatherings became complicated as people tried to navigate the tension between my parents and me. But something unexpected happened about a month later that changed everything. My dad showed up at my apartment one evening, looking older and more tired than I had ever seen him. He didn't call first or ask if it was a good time. He just appeared at my door with tears in his eyes. He told me that the anniversary party had been a disaster, not because of my absence, but because he had finally realized what he had done. Seeing other family members' reactions and hearing their disappointment had forced him to confront his behavior in a way he hadn't before. My dad explained that he and my mom had been going through their own marital problems around the time of my wedding. They had been fighting constantly and were actually considering divorce. In their selfishness and emotional turmoil, they had convinced themselves that attending my wedding would be hypocritical. He acknowledged that this was a terrible excuse and that their personal problems should never have affected their support for me. He said he had been too proud and stubborn to admit his mistake earlier, but that the anniversary party had shown him how much damage his silence had caused. The conversation lasted for hours as we both cried and talked through everything that had happened. He apologized repeatedly and asked if there was any way to repair our relationship. I told him that I appreciated his honesty, but that rebuilding trust would take time and consistent effort. My mom took longer to come around, but eventually she also reached out with a genuine apology. She admitted that she had been embarrassed by their behavior and had been too ashamed to face me. She said that missing my wedding was the biggest regret of her life, and that she would do anything to make it right. The healing process was slow and sometimes painful. We had to have many difficult conversations about boundaries, respect, and accountability. But gradually, we began to rebuild our relationship on a more honest foundation. My parents asked if there was anything they could do to make up for missing the wedding. I told them that the damage was done and couldn't be undone, but that they could show their commitment to our relationship through their future actions rather than trying to fix the past. They have been true to their word over the past year. They make an effort to be involved in my life, they respect my boundaries, and they have worked on their own relationship issues. We still have some difficult moments, but there's a genuine foundation of respect now that didn't exist before. Looking back, I realized that canceling their anniversary party was one of the hardest but most important decisions I've made as an adult. It wasn't about revenge or punishment. It was about standing up for myself and refusing to accept treatment that was fundamentally wrong. The experience taught me that sometimes you have to be willing to lose relationships temporarily in order to save them permanently. By drawing a clear line and sticking to it, I forced my parents to confront their behavior and ultimately led to a more authentic relationship between us. My wife and I celebrated our first anniversary recently, and both of my parents were there. They had learned from their mistake and made sure to be present for this important milestone. It wasn't a grand gesture or dramatic reconciliation, but it meant everything to me. The situation also taught me valuable lessons about family dynamics and the importance of accountability. Just because someone is family doesn't mean they get a free pass to treat you poorly. Love sometimes requires difficult conversations and firm boundaries. I still think about those empty chairs at my wedding sometimes, and I probably always will. But I've learned that you can't control other people's choices. You can only control your response to them. By refusing to accept their behavior and standing up for myself, I ultimately got the parents I had always wanted. The whole experience made me more aware of how I want to treat my own future children. I never want them to feel abandoned or unsupported during their important moments. I want to be the kind of parent who shows up, even when it's inconvenient or uncomfortable. My relationship with my parents will never be exactly the same as it was before my wedding. Too much has happened for us to go back to the way things were. But in some ways, it's actually better now because it's built on honesty and mutual respect, rather than just obligation and habit. The extended family has also benefited from this situation in unexpected ways. The drama forced everyone to have conversations about family values and expectations that had been long overdue. Several relatives have mentioned that our family gatherings feel more authentic now. My brother told me recently that watching how I handled the situation inspired him to set better boundaries with our parents in his own life. He said that seeing me stand up for myself gave him permission to do the same in areas where he had been too passive. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is refuse to enable someone's bad behavior. By canceling their anniversary party, I forced my parents to face the consequences of their choices, and ultimately led to a better relationship for everyone involved. The whole ordeal reminded me that family relationships, like marriages, require ongoing effort and commitment from all parties. You can't just assume they'll work out on their own. You have to be willing to have difficult conversations and make hard choices when necessary. As I write this, I'm planning my own father's birthday party next month. The fact that I want to celebrate him, and that he's excited about it, shows how much our relationship has healed. But I also know that if he ever crosses those boundaries again, I'll have the strength to respond appropriately. The empty chairs at my wedding will always be a painful memory, but they also represent a turning point in my life. They taught me that I have the power to demand better treatment, and that sometimes short-term conflict is necessary for long-term happiness. I hope my story helps others who might be dealing with similar family situations. Sometimes the kindest thing you can do is refuse to participate in dysfunction, even when it's uncomfortable or creates temporary drama. The most important lesson I learned is that you teach people how to treat you by what you accept. By accepting my parents' behavior without consequences, I would have been teaching them that it was okay to treat me poorly. By drawing a line and sticking to it, I taught them that I deserved better. Today, my relationship with my parents is stronger than it's been in years. We still have our differences, but there's a foundation of respect and accountability that wasn't there before. Sometimes you have to lose something to find something better.